We've got two shorter sessions left. They're both really cool, both kind of in the urban planning, smart city planning domain. But let me start off. I'm going to introduce you to Maarit Kahila. Yes, no? Does that, I didn't go long enough on the A. I totally botched that. Sorry for that.
It's okay.
From Maptionnaire, I think we're going to hear about is an interesting perspective on sort of the value, maybe the overlooked value of crowdsourcing and sourcing information from citizens when it comes to city planning, and what Maptionnaire is doing to kind of help with that. And she's going to show some examples of things that they're doing with location intelligence to help cities with that. And then after that, we're going to have BBVA, but I will introduce them separately. So let me hand it over to Maarit, and thank you very much, everyone, and thank you.
Do you have a pointer or something? How do I change the slides?
Yes, it should be, unless someone stole it,
okay.
right here.
Thank
So
you.
let's see, make sure it works.
Obviously the green button, yeah.
Yeah, and stand over here because there's a nice monitor and they can't see you in the dark in the corner.
Okay. Hey, nice to see you all here. I hope you have still energy to sit for a while and listen to this presentation. My name is Maarit Kahila, and I come from Finland, from a company called Mapita. And I will tell you today a little bit about Maptionnaire. But before I start, I want to tell you that we are a spin-off company actually from Aalto University, and I have started to work already in 2005 with the tools called PPGIS, Public Participatory GIS tools. So I have a long path behind me working with these tools. So mainly we work with urban planners, and as you might know that cities at the moment are changing major challenges because many cities need to densify their existing city structure. And when doing this, they need to approach local people, they need to communicate with people, they need to communicate with the residents. And this might be challenging sometimes. So when it comes to public participation, we have identified these challenges. So rather often when you organize public participation venues and try to approach people, you get only a handful of people who come to these events. And these people usually, they just concentrate on resisting changes. Also, timing of participation is often very late. And this all leads to non-influential participation. But what is then interesting for us is also the data that is collected in these public participation processes. Usually it remains invisible and it's rather difficult to use efficiently in these processes. And when we think this from the planner's point of view, the processes are very demanding to organize and it's not very inspiring for the planners. So these are the challenges we want to tackle, and we think that instead of using the old set of tools, we need new tools, obviously, and we need these new digital tools. But more than that, we think that we need to complete the toolbox with different kinds of tools, and we need many kinds of channels and tools to make public participation more efficient. And our approach stems from that point that we think that we all are experts of our living environment. We all live in places and we know our local surroundings very well. So we value this information, what all of us have inside. So this is the knowledge we want to capture, and this is the knowledge we want to use when doing urban planning in the future. And though one might think that this kind of knowledge it easily is, comment from a person, or, one person has one, opinion or something. But when we put out a survey, map-based survey, and collect the information, we get these kinds of maps. This dataset was collected in Helsinki as part of the city plan process of Helsinki. And there, during 1 month, it was more than 4,000 people who answered to the map survey. And they created the dataset of 33,000 map markings. So it is a huge dataset. And already here you can see how this data starts to cluster. So it becomes very the separate and scattered comments from people. Those turn very efficient way to think what people think of their living environment. So these kind of data sets can be collected with Maptionnaire. So Maptionnaire is a SaaS service that enables you to create these map-based surveys and publish the surveys and then analyze the data collected with these surveys. And we have at the moment, there is now a short video clip about the tool. This is actually, the film was done in the Netherlands, and there they use a lot of these touch screens when they meet people. So there are many different kinds of situations when you can collect this kind of data. And of course, Maptionnaire is mobile supported, so it's very easy for the respondents to use their mobile phone in answering the survey. And of course, with the online analysis tool, you can immediately check how the data starts to accumulate. And here you can see all the data sets collected with Maptionnaire. So, as I mentioned, it's a SaaS service used globally. So we have customers in Europe, we have customers in US, and in New Zealand and Australia. And at the moment, we have done over 4,000 projects with Maptionnaire. And how people use Maptionnaire is that they create the project by themselves. And what I think at the moment is the most fascinating thing is to follow how people use this platform and service in their projects. So I think our customers are very creative when they use Maptionnaire. And now I will show you some. And before that, as I mentioned, mainly our projects are done in the field of urban planning. So it's master regional planning, detailed planning, where most of these projects are done. Then one major field is transportation planning, and also green and blue area planning, parks and recreation, so to say, are among the biggest fields where Maptionnaire is used. So then some examples how Maptionnaire is used in these urban planning projects. This is one case from Stockholm. City of Stockholm uses Maptionnaire a lot in many different kinds of projects. They are at the moment renewing this harbor area. It's at the moment, it lacks kind of all these buildings, so they want to turn it to a nice neighborhood. And they use the Maptionnaire to introduce the new plan proposal for the area. And what I think was very nice in this project is the way how they move the respondent through the survey. So, of course, it's a lot about collecting the data from the respondent, but what also people value is that with these kinds of tools, you can also inform people and, tell them what is going to happen in this area. And this, when it comes to public participation, this is of course a very important aspect. So, and here you can see how these different areas inside the project area are introduced with Maptionnaire. And you can use pictures here to highlight how how the place will look like, and then you can ask these map-based questions, but also, different kinds of questions can be added to the tool. Then I mentioned to you that this traffic and transportation planning is among among the fields where Maptionnaire is used. And in transportation planning, I think it's very interesting that there is Maptionnaire has been used in the strategic planning project, but also in very detailed planning projects. So the scale varies a lot in these projects. You can see here that this is actually, I think, from San Jose, this survey. So they have even asked these questions related to the city, the street and junctions. And this was one project done in New York where they were wanted to understand better how people use transit in New York. And then you can use in Maptionnaire, of course, the maps, global maps that we have ready in our service. But then you can also use pictures as these base maps. And then, of course, you cannot. What you cannot do is that you cannot move this data to GIS system because it lacks the geo-coordinates. But you can use the analysis tool that we have inside Maptionnaire to get acquainted with the data. And here we have just one video clip that then emphasizes how we have used CARTO in our projects. We are big fans of CARTO, and here I also want to thank CARTO for asking us to come here and keep this presentation. So we have used CARTO in many of our customer projects to visualize and publish the data collected with Maptionnaire. Because though I said that in Maptionnaire we have the analysis tool, it's rather simple tool, but what CARTO offers is more visual tool and way to show the data collected. In this project, we are actually doing a new vision for a neighborhood, and you saw there the areas marked on top of the map. Those are the areas where people have marked that should be how they understand the neighborhood and how they think the neighborhood should be framed and what are the borders for the neighborhood. And here is also one other project where we use CARTO. Here you can see this was actually called as urban. It's in Europe we are building these urban national parks, so to say. I don't know if that is the correct name, but and also in Helsinki, the idea is to establish this kind of urban national park to Helsinki, and there the planners wanted to use Maptionnaire to understand how people perceive these green areas in Helsinki. And what I think is nice here you can see with this purple color places that people think remind them of Helsinki, and then there are with this green marks places that remind the natural, that people feel that are the most important nature areas. So easily you can see here how the data clusters. And of course the planners also have used these CARTO tools to understand better the insight from the data. Here you can just see also in this Urban National Park project, we asked the respondents to draw the areas for this new national park in Helsinki. And I think I'm nearly coming to the end. And what I want to say when it comes to smart cities and smart city planning, I think it's the combination of using these new digital tools, but it's also about how we change the practice and how we change the ways people are used to work. And I think one way to think of this kind of cooperation is that we need to find ways to collect this broad data from the public, and we need to understand better the insight, what the local people have from their living environment. But then we need to kind of convert this data, and there we need these situations and face-to-face meetings and discussions with the local people. And there, of course, we can use different kinds of digital tools and technology to support those situations. But then again, if we think of the urban planning process, where we have many different phases and situations and actors and so forth, we need to diverge again and make the public know that what's happening in that project. So it's like a combination of converging and diverging the knowledge further. So this is my last slide, and I think we have still time for some